I'm Gus Clutterbuck, and I've been practicing artist for almost 25 years, I suppose. And I mainly work in, I'm sort of mostly known for my work in ceramics and porcelain. But recently I've been going back to a lot of my drawing and my painting and drawing as well, especially through COVID times. Uh, we've done a lot of, I guess, community arts work and a lot of work in Indigenous communities where I still work in the Kimberleys at Warrangarri Aboriginal Arts in Kununurra with all the Mirrawong mob, who are like all sort of really great friends and collaborators, I guess. And so I'll do a few trips up there a few times a year and work in the ceramic studio and sort of support the artists doing their works for various exhibitions or products. And I guess this is coming to the where do I work question, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it's good. It's brilliant segue.
Okay, no worries. So I also have a couple of like I have my own business, which is a sole trader business, and I guess this is going back to sort of feeds into the idea of the juggle, with the grand juggle of how you juggle life, art, and creative practice.
Yeah.
So I've had my business has been going for 10 years now, which is called Gus Clutterbuck Art and Design. And that business is a kind of a great source of income because it's all about installation, picture hanging, installation of picture rails. So a lot of that work is pure tradie type work, which is drilling holes in walls and putting things on walls and hanging everything from mirrors to photo walls to whatever, as well as fine art collections. So that's a great sort of source of income, but also part of my business is my arts practice, exhibitions, residencies, my work in Indigenous Australia, and then also do some other installation work at the Art Gallery of South Australia and also ACE Open just in recent times. So yeah, that's kind of like kind of the range of kind of like work, money, creative kind of things that I do. I also do a bit of DJing as well. That's part of the business, so it's a bit of music in there too. But as I've found, I've got to a point where that's actually worked for me, because when something drops off, something else can come up. And it's been pretty useful in COVID times as well, when all sorts of things are getting cancelled. And but then there's always something will come up in the installation side of things or the tradie work, so yeah, I guess that's that sort of covers my sort of diverse business, I suppose.
Great. Shall
Yeah.
I pull up your screen because you've got some fantastic
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
illustrative
Mm.
that might move you between. I mean, I know that the Kununurra picture, was, I saw that when I was looking through your slides.
Yeah.
Keynote, here we go. Gus. So what would you like to start with?
What do we? I'd actually really like to maybe speak to the idea of studios, because I really like, just going back to what Sue was talking about, how in the beginning about how important studio spaces are to artists. Yeah, this is a nice one to start with. So more and more, I'm coming to feel the issue good studio space is such an important thing for the potential of artists and what we can all do, because, and I really take Sue's point about how the space is actually dictating kind of how we're working in many ways. So my story was, and I mentioned previously that I started going to China. So a number of years ago, probably about 9 years ago now, I would say, I made a commitment to beginning an international career, and part of that commitment was I wanted to go to Jingdezhen in China and learn how to paint in blue and white on porcelain. Because Jingdezhen is the porcelain capital of the world. It's a historic Chinese porcelain city going back to the imperial times for about 2,000 years. So it's a world centre for this art form. So for many years, I put a lot of energy into building that career in China, and going every year. And some way I'd find a way of doing it, like a AsiaLink 1 year, Osco 1 year, Arts SA 1 year, Business Loan another year, to basically to get myself to China to have that, say 6 to 8 weeks a year, and just do a concentrated period of making. So, over those years, a lot of relationships built up in terms of, I had a great friend and mentor. It was a man called Wong Fei. That's Wong Fei there, who started off as my teacher and then became we collaborated together. Our last works were collaborative works. But just going back to the studio shot, so basically, I had a studio in China, and I had, I've had studios at the Jam Factory on and off, and but then, of course, COVID sort of come in and cancelled all that, and now I can't go back to China, and I have a huge amount of work which is sort of trapped there, which I'm slowly trying to extract. Just if anyone's got any questions, just jump in as I'm rattling away, because but so this is my home studio, which is kind of the back porch of my rented house in Prospect, and which I love my house dearly. It's just a little place. I'm a separated parent, so I'm kind of a single parent, and I have my son 50% of the time. And the idea of actually kind of juggling between the priorities of caring and also trying to keep progressing my work has been something that I've kind of managed to make work in this little house, a bit like Sue was saying about she works in a laundry, or, so my son has recently also been seriously ill with a eating disorder. So I spent probably the last 2 years looking after him with very high care needs, and having this kind of home studio has allowed me to do the kind of meal supervision and care needs that he needs, while we're still trying to make more work at the same time. So it's actually the compact space, like the kitchen's just adjacent to this studio. So it's kind of like, I think as an artist, you're always trying to get all these competing priorities and situations and juggle them around and try and multitask them to make them work. So so like also I'm sort of having really not being able to run a proper kiln here is also very limiting as well, because of course I don't have 3-phase power or the power to run a bigger kiln. So I'm having to I had a little kiln I could run, but so I started working on small things, and I actually got some funding to do this studio through the Arts SA COVID grant. So that's how I got the money to kind of enclose it and build some benches and stuff like that, Yeah, sorry, I'm going all over the place here. Is that?
It's fine. I like
Um,
the auspicious incense in the foreground. Is that part of your practice?
not really, just happened to be there at the time. It's just, yeah, I just like a random snapshot. There's a disco ball up the top there as well.
Yeah, I saw that as
Like,
well.
yeah, it all came from my daughter's. I mean, she had her party there, so I had to kind of. It's a very multifunctional space. So the bar that's on that can work for some of these new long kind of stick pieces that I'm making at the moment, um, which I've actually had to kind of transport to different kilns with the kind of various risks of breakage and you know um, all the rest that comes
That's what
along
I was
with
going to ask you about next. So
that.
you're carting all this bisqueware, this greenware around.
Yeah. You just have to find creative ways to kind of like basically, I've got a ute, so I can I build some boxes that are long boxes, but yeah, it's really hard. And the thing about ceramic spaces in Adelaide is ceramics capable studios is there's very few on offer,
Mm.
and so it's actually quite hard to access. So that's actually part of this has also led me back to my drawing, and actually, if you could flick to the slide, the potholes image, not that one, the kind of work on paper,
Oh, yes.
yeah.
Which
So
is
yeah,
that
so
behind you as well?
sorry.
Is that a piece behind you as well?
That's actually a companion piece. So
Okay,
I've actually entered both of these into the Creative Health Art Prize
beautiful.
this year. So
This is a meter by a meter.
yeah, that's yeah. You can kind of see the similar scale behind me.
Mm.
So yeah, I just wanted to talk to this one a bit because this like kind of epitomizes, I guess, the juggle between life and your life or your family life or whatever and art. So with my son being sick and everything, I spent quite a bit of time in hospital in Flinders Medical Centre. So and this work was work that was actually started kind of in the bedside. So I was able to use my time in hospital with him um, as well to get him to actually do some of the initial black, kind of the dark black marks. So, and then I'd respond to that. The sticks are representative of him as he's always played with sticks, like he just picks twigs up and plays with them. So yeah, it's kind of like all this whole series is called sticky drawings. So they're all just about taking a very ordinary, insignificant object and then working with that to bring out all the eccentricities and the kind of just differences within those simple objects that they're kind of quite sort of ever present. And yeah, and also like I also like the immediacy of this is tea stains with watercolor and ink, and I love the immediacy of those mediums as well. So yeah, once you've got on the paper, yeah, is kind of there, but it's also a great kind of spontaneity in making the work. So of course, like something like this, most all of my work has a narrative to it, and so the story. So the story is, he's made this little figure. This is like his journey to recovery. So and it's difficult and full of potholes. So that's where the title comes from.
Beautiful.
But so yeah, being able to actually, especially through COVID when we were kind of locked down, be at the kitchen table or the desk or something, or at a little very small space, because these sorry, these are done at 18 centimeters by 18 centimeters as the original painting. So they're very small pieces of paper, and then they're enlarged as a digital print to the 1 meter size. So part of the actual artwork is that enlargement process, which brings out all the details that you may not see it drawing at such a small scale or drawing and painting. So in terms of printmaking, I would consider the original drawing as a printmaking plate, and then the limited edition as being the digital prints that run off that. So yeah, I guess this is kind of a recent sort of example of that kind of juggle of life and art, and I think us artists as well, and like going back to what Sue was saying, unless you have like a rich partner, or you own a home, or you living with a kind of a sense of constant insecurity, and not really knowing what's happening from 1 week to the next. So you just kind of got to make do and keep going. And I think it's that that drive, our vocation as artists, that make us artists, that mean that we really can't do anything else apart from do art, and that just keeps us going on regardless, sort of, finding ways of managing, or kind of keeping moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me think of like a bushfire almost.
Yeah, it's
And
very.
I felt that when you were talking about, the grief around a sick child. It seems like it's a good way to capture it, really.
Yeah. Well, certainly, with that kind of adversity, has to be sort of processed somehow, and especially when it goes on for such a long time. I mean, thankfully he's in recovery now, so where this year's been really a game changer. So, but yeah, certainly it was a pretty long haul for about sort of 18 months or 2 years, and that's. But all sorts of positive things have come out of that as well. So you just have to
like this.
Yeah.
Beautiful work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, like, oh wow, I'm quite fascinated. Committing yourself to an international career. I like how you decided that, and then hearing how you actually made that happen is quite fascinating.
Yeah, I kind of I think I was in a very like the catalyst for that was also kind of a relationship breakup many years ago, but I'd actually had quite a lot of success with my ceramics, and won a prize in the Korean International Biennale in around about 2011. And of course, wanted to go, and that just wasn't possible for me to go to kind of grab the bouquet. So I didn't go. And
Shall I pull that slide up?
Yeah, actually, I don't have a slide of that. You can pull this slide.
Oh, sorry, I thought that was this.
No, that's okay. This is a good one. That other work that won that prize some years ago was that was a different work called Plastic Geology. But I think just having that opportunity and not being able to take it, made me 500% more determined to go to China, and so that's what I did. And then I got a Education Minister's Award for artists in schools, which gave me some money, and then an Arts SA grant, and that gave me the rest. And then I went, and of course it was still juggling around the family caring stuff, but I managed to get enough time off to be able to do that. And in the ensuing years, I kind of just found a way as well. But
Very glamorous.
This work here is called Master of the Rocks, Parts 1 and 3, and this was in the recent Taiwan Ceramics Biennial in Taipei, and this was also another unfortunate COVID cancelling, can't go, but the whole certainly I didn't win a prize in this, but this was in the final exhibition, so I was very happy to have this piece included. And in many ways, this sorry, this image, which is called Dish with a Painted Landscape, the background image, is something that was very influential to my work right from the first time I went to China. And it's actually just a small plate that's in a museum in the Netherlands, but it's such a work that epitomizes the ideas of landscape, of the Chinese attitude towards landscape, of the perfection of the brushstrokes, of the notion, which I've related to Australia, of the very small person in the very big, dangerous landscape, which is exactly kind of how white people or white fellas have always sort of had this feeling about the outback or the Australian landscape, that it's a place of adventure or danger, or this idea of the grandeur of nature that kind of is overwhelming. So yeah, in my work, like I've always tried to bring these two ideas of landscape together, between the Chinese ideal of the ideal life in nature, and perhaps the Australian kind of encounter with the outback. And in the first lot of works, a lot of my if you like, there's another slide which is the sorry, self-portrait as Li Bai. And not that one. It's that one there. So this the picture in the middle is like a photo that I took from when I worked in Armata in the APY lands, and it's actually just a friend who was standing on some rocks and looking out over the landscape. So this is the desert landscape of the Pitjantjatjara lands, sort of translated into blue and white. And the man in the middle is a famous poet called Li Bai, who was one of the most famous Han Dynasty poets. So who's remembered an everyday kind of figure in China to this day. So this kind of superimposition of Chinese over Australian and Australian over Chinese is really where kind of my work kind of progressed in that, through those times in China. And this plate sorry, and I also wanted to progress to scale up, and I think that's what you can do in Jindajian, because you have the ability and the knowledge and the resources of 2,000 years of porcelain craft, in one place. So this one is a 1 meter diameter plate, porcelain, and it was actually, I went to an outdoor table factory and worked in the factory, and so it's actually an outdoor table.
Wow.
And that's why it's got the compartments, but it all worked perfectly as a plate. So so that's part of my progression through working in China, was to come out of the residency studios like the Pottery Workshop and start working in the Chinese factories. So in the Chinese factories, I mean, they're not big things like we'd imagine like a steel factory is here or something. There's the Chinese factories are like factory districts, so they're just multitude of small workshops in an area.
Leftover from communism.
Yeah. So the many of the the studios they became independent studios after the change in communism. I wouldn't say communism ever
Yeah,
left,
sorry.
but
The Cultural Revolution.
yeah. But yeah, so that was a big thing for me. Was the scale up, and also with the big tiles as well. So yeah. Mm.
Beautiful. Would you like me to move to um, this? I saw these on your Facebook page before
Yeah.
I saw them here. I was fascinated. This is quite recent.
Yeah. So this is the last kind of lot of work that I did in China, and this is a collaboration with Wong Fei, with my friend and mentor. And so this is a 1.5 meter wide porcelain tile by 800 mil high, and it's it was planning. We planned an exhibition in Nanjing that was for 2020, and I had a grant, an Arts SA grant, to go over and work on this project and make these works. So big tile works with Wong Fei, and we would have, had we had the chance, gone bigger than that as well, gone to 2 meters probably.
So how thick?
They're around about probably 20 or 30 mil
So
thick.
they're very heavy.
Yeah, they're heavy, but they're not. I mean, they're for the size of them, they're not as thick as you'd think they would be. But they just have an incredible. The way they make these is just an incredible process. You know, this porcelain. So once again, this was going and making these ones in the factory, in the Chinese factory, and so the artwork itself is kind of like, I guess this sort of goes into, is skipping into the kind of collaboration sort of field. But so we we have different styles, and Wong Fei, and the idea of the lotus and the water lily have always been something that the Wong Fei and I may have gone out to the lotus ponds and drawn, or we often go drawing together, and we'll go and find a lotus pond, some kind of dingy suburb of Jingdezhen or something, and on the back of a moped, and sit down there on the edge of the pond and just draw in our little sketchbooks, and yeah, it's been some really wonderful times doing that. And the last time we had a trip out to a place called Golden Bamboo Village. We just hired a driver and went out to paint persimmon trees, because Wong Fei was going, "Oh, persimmon, very beautiful." People love buying, Chinese people love buying, drawings of persimmon trees, So we went to this village and spent a weekend in a farmer's vegetable patch, because there was a persimmon tree just there, and just drew for the whole weekend pretty much. Got a hotel for the night. So we've done a lot of sketching together. And
are you dealing with language barrier issues when you're hanging out with Wong Fei?
Yeah, no, because from the time I met, he is such an incredible person that he basically taught himself English from the time I first started doing workshops with him, where he needed a translator, to the end where he was pretty much fluent in English.
Wow.
So, an amazing person, yeah. And so this idea of the lily and the lotus and all that, is all these kind of a great cross-cultural metaphor for us to work with together, and also the shard shapes. So sorry, all of these, our collaborative method was that I would mask out we'd mask out all of these shard shapes with paper over the tile, and then he painted over the whole lot, and then I'd paint these designs in, my designs in, which are actually into the shard shapes, inside the shard shapes. So those designs also draw from my time in the Kimberleys, working with Mirrawong people. So they're about the Kimberley water lily. So
Oh, cool.
it's kind of like a kind of great China Australia sort of collaboration in the same image about these different sorts of symbols and images and, you know, floral designs. Yeah.
Is the glaze Chinese or Australian? Is the blue?
The blue, okay, the blue is there's cobalt. It's all cobalt carbonate. And so when we actually paint that, we paint it in greys, shades of grey, apart from some of the coloured bits, which are underglaze colours, which are sort of actual colours when you paint them. But I think if you go back to that other slide with Wong Fei and I painting,
oh, you can see the painting.
you can see on the surface, you can see that's the greys. So the art of actually painting Qinghua or blue and white is all about understanding the shades of grey in the so. And of course, in the factory, the workers will roll these tiles up. They'll bring them to you on a board, and then you paint them in the factory and you leave them. And so they're then taken down on the boards and put into the kiln, which is a big specialised kiln. And then they're glazed first, and then there's one firing. So the tile, the glaze, and everything is fired, and the firing lasts 5 or 6 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they're making other Qinghua, was it?
Yeah, they make
making other Qinghua.
Yeah, it's actually huge. It's a huge industry in China. People were buying big tiles all the time, and Wong Fei, his training was in a big tile studio, so he was a winter landscape painter, which he ended up kind of not really liking at all because he just wanted to do his own work.
Yeah.
But so
it must be a breath of fresh air to have you there to be doing something.
Yeah. He has his own quite successful career where he was engaged with a lot of international artists who had come to Jingdezhen, and then that unfortunately came to a halt in the beginning of 2020 when he was in Canada and had a terrible car accident. So he's still in Canada recovering from spinal injuries.
Oh,
yeah,
dear.
In Vancouver. So yeah, that was, we had that happen, and then COVID happened, and so every
wow,
but he's
it
still
makes this
making
time
art.
more precious.
Yeah. So
and this is another work that you collaborated on.
Yeah, I kind of just put this one in because
I love it.
Yeah, this is actually based on I brought Wong Fei out to Australia with Guildhouse, and he came out and did a residency at the Jam Factory, and then did some, we did some talks and workshops and stuff, and went drawing together, and this was a trip that we did to Cleveland actually. So he's drawn this kind of picture of that's his son came with him, so his son feeding the kangaroo, and then there's the Cleveland National Park, and the other two bits have been masked off where I've actually put in. This is one of the persimmon trees that we were drawing on our trip to the bamboo village. So it's kind of like, I like that, always like that combination of almost symbolic elements, like there's a Chinese tree and an Australian tree, and that shows the cooperation, the friendship, the cross-cultural friendship, and the exchange. So these are one of the works that was going to be in the show as well. So this is a much smaller work, but still, the way we collaborated was that we didn't ever disagree or dispute about what the other one did. It was the total trust thing. We had to trust each other and just accept that what we did is what we did. And and I think that risk taking is really something that, I mean, I love to build risk into the making of the work, because I think the risk is so essential to the work becoming really good, turning out really well. And this element of trust is so there's trust and risk built into these works.
Well, it's a beautiful capture of the concept of collaboration.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Maybe you'd like to talk about this, because I'm about to do some of this.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, this. I think this is the
new thing.
Learning something new, kind of out of necessity, really. But so the works that we made for that show that never happened in Nanjing. After Wong Fei had his accident, and then his studio had to be given back. So all of the work and everything that was in the studio ended up back in his apartment in Jingdezhen, where his father was living. And then basically we had to sort that out, and everything was kind of jumbled up and lost. And so I had to try and work out a way of getting all of that back here, which I've just done successfully. But the learning curve is quite steep. I've done shipping before and actually been there in China and done the kind of shipping with the shipping agent.
Plus, Wang Fei wasn't there to.
Yeah, he wasn't there
either.
So basically, there's an app called WeChat. I don't know if anyone's got it. Everyone's got WeChat. Yeah, so I did it all over WeChat. Hired a project manager in Jingdezhen who knew Wang Fei's family, and like Wang Fei and Kyra suggested this girl. So, and she was really good, and she basically went with his father and found all the artworks eventually in the apartment. Then got them to the framer, so I did all the framing over WeChat. WeChat sort of videos, and then the crate maker came down and made the crate for the works, and they had to work out, because they were odd shaped works, how they'd all fit. And then the crate went to the shipping agent, then did all the paperwork for the shipping, like over another WeChat kind of group chat, and then the ship sailed, and then basically I had to organise another shipping agent here to do the customs clearance. So all of this kind of ended up being, costing a couple of $1,000 all up, of which I had some of the original grant money left. So basically, what I had to try and do at the same time was get Arts SA to repurpose the funding. So being a government agency, of course, they wanted to see a whole lot of evidence and support letters and all this other stuff, which I kind of had to kind of produce. And then, the cultural language barrier with trying to do this in China, because Chinese don't give you a quote, they just do it,
What's the quote?
Like, oh yes, okay, the framing, okay, how much for the framing? Oh, call us tomorrow, and they're going, oh, we've almost finished framing it now. So on one hand, I had the funding body, I was trying to gather this stuff, and
they were already banging together the box.
It was already done. Yeah, it was pretty much. Anyway, it all worked out fantastic. If there's anyone from Arts SA listening, thank you very much. But I think, to be honest, I think when the authorisation to use the funds to cover all the expenses came, the ship had already set sail about a week before, I think. So.
Wow, risk again.
But it all turned out all right. So yeah.
Right.
Yes.
I haven't. There's this picture of you in the studio, maybe in Jingdezhen.
Yeah, that's in the pottery workshop studio, and I think that
That's
was just going.
amazing.
Yeah, so a wonderful place to work and a wonderful environment, and you know, I think like Sue was saying before about the importance of international residencies and about actually meeting other artists who are really dynamic and like who you would never have contact with, ordinarily in your own patch, and about how that makes you grow as an artist. And I have so many amazing times from the pottery workshop and meeting and working with artists that I probably never would have met or worked with hadn't if I hadn't gone there. And just with the facilities and the equipment resources being so good. And I just wanted to put this picture in because it also does show the contrasts between, and also with the various studios, and also like with the Warren studio as well,
Oh, yeah.
and about how like I'm really coming to feel that our studio spaces just affect the way we can work and
Mm.
what we can make so much. um and I've had like I don't really make any of my own work in the Warren studio, but I certainly have a hand, I've had a hand progressing the studio from this picture into something much more, I guess, upgraded and sophisticated. And now we've got a kiln, and now we can kind of make a lot more bigger and better works consistently. But certainly, in all the development time, probably 4 years that been working with the artists in studio, we work with very basic kind of forming tools, just like plaster molds, making kind of paper clay forms off plaster molds. Like you can see that Coolman form in
Hmm.
the foreground,
Beautiful.
and hand building, and yeah, once again, doing like we used to have a kiln that was in a job pathway centre that wasn't at the art centre, and so we'd be loading all the platters and the
God.
everything into the treepie and driving across town to
The corrugated iron roads.
yeah, it wasn't. It's
Very.
not too bad because Warrengary's actually in the town on the
Okay.
outskirts of Kununurra, but yeah. Um, but yeah, so and then firing them and having to fit in with other people's kind of schedules. Like if they shut the gates at 3:30 and knock
Oh,
off, well, it's got to be done by then. But yeah, certainly, and also having to have pretty major exhibitions, like providing work for Tarnandy at the art gallery, or the Jam Factory show, or shows in some of the big galleries in Darwin or Perth. So yeah.
do you drive there to?
No, fly.
Okay.
Yeah, they fly me up. So, but I've been caught in quarantine twice now on
Oh,
my trip. So yeah, it's getting harder to do.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I love working with the artists, and also in terms of collaboration. I'm a facilitator and a mentor, but also my training as community artist also it helped me have that ability to just be able to focus on um, the bringing forward the vision of the artists with their own work. And then really kind of mentoring in terms of technical advice and making the forms, but and some kind of aesthetics when I'm asked, and so that does happen, and but I love my job there. It's great.
Oh, yeah. I'm really inspired by. I'm sort of looking at a better car because I'd like to do some work
Mm. Oh yeah, bush,
in the
yeah,
communities. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, most of the time they'll fly you up if it's in the central desert or something, and
Yeah,
It's,
I don't know whether I want to go near an airport, but
yeah, yeah, yeah,
but it might be just as bad driving over the border.
yeah.
I've got a little bit of footage of you at work.
Yeah, this is in China. This is just some video of just
This is
the,
lovely. Thank you for providing all these beautiful
yeah, no
resources.
worries.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and this
A little bit of a selfie at the end
my
there.
stupid face. How do I turn this time lapse thing off?
You're using a traditional sort of sumi-e brush or bamboo.
Yeah, these are traditional point brushes of basically, there's two sorts of brush that use. One's the like the point brush, and also the chicken head brush, which is for shading, which means that you kind of actually I might have one here,
Chicken head brush. That sounds interesting.
which is like that. If you can see that, okay.
Oh,
So this actually,
wow.
when it's wet, that turns into a point,
Yep.
and so the way you actually, oh sorry, that's better, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that you'll squeeze the brush like that and flood. Sort of interesting for when you think about watercolor, because you can paint watercolor with this too, and so yeah, that's it really.
Where did you learn about that brush?
Well, it's part of blue and white painting. So with blue and white painting, you have really, when you start, you have three brushes, and one and a
The point.
point brush, which is that one,
Hmm.
and then another little brush, which I can't find, but yeah, and
And
then
you're
really do
using
everything with that. Yeah,
kind of so like otter hair or something, or
I'm not quite sure what hair it is. It's
yeah,
some kind of hair. Maybe it's
but very hard to control because I teach a little bit of sumi-e and it's
yeah,
very hard to use the traditional brushes. I often resort to
yeah,
the modern versions of them.
yeah. Well, once you get the hang of this one, it's great
I
because
can imagine.
what you do is when you flooded an area, um, you can actually you kind of squeeze it and then you put it back in. You can suck it back up like a vacuum cleaner.
Oh, wow.
So then you can put it back, suck it up, put it back.
So why is it called a chicken head brush?
Because uh, you'd have to see this wet, but it just has that. It sort of has this kind of look to it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So yeah.
Fantastic.
So and all these brushes, these ones made by, I remember going to the workshop of the 80-year-old brush maker who hand rolls them. It's like such a
Wow.
beautiful thing to do, and see that kind of culture as it's been happening for thousands of years, really.
Wow, that's beautiful. It
Mm.
sounds like you've got some incredible connections and been able to pursue like I've had a similar experience with Moroccan artists and
Yeah,
artisan, and
yeah,
it's just such a rich experience to be learning traditional crafts and
mm.
bringing something also to the about the concept of what an artist is to them.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
has been some of your experiences with the reactions to your involvement in the world, in the Chinese world of blue paint?
Well, I knew I was kind of like on a bit of a winner with what I was doing because like I when you make your art, usually when you go and get it fired, you'll go to the public kilns, and then there'll be like a glaze master, they call them glaze shifu and kiln shifu, and I'd often take it there, and the kiln guy, the kiln shifu master, he go, oh, very good. Oh, it's good, good, you know. And then we communicate with our various selection of my 10 words of Mandarin, and and plus, you know, my experience in charades, like, and then and eventually we'd, you know, but also I think the Chinese, and this is, I think it's part of the reason why I was able to be accepted by a gallery in China, and also have solo shows there. That that part of the notion of doing blue and white is a very much a respectful thing to the culture, because when you learn about when you learn about blue and white painting, and you learn in a way that looks at the symbology of Chinese art, then that's a language that Chinese people understand. So there's a hook in it. So my thing was always to chuck the Australian bit in that kind of like made it a bit different, you know, like the kangaroos or the. I mean, if you'll see maybe that other slide with the crate where I'm holding that tile.
I've got your question there too, Sue. I'll ask him after this.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, right.
So this one here, I mean, you can't really see that very well. But so but there's this piece is based on a poem, which is a really sad poem. Yeah, a sad poem, and a shard image, like from a broken pottery shard, and the image is called the Spring Sigh. So there's a poem about the men going off to war to fight the Tartars, and the poem goes, and they rode off, and then they were slain thousandfold in the riverbed, and never to return, but their souls returned to their lovers in the spring, you know, like as and the woman is there, and she's out in the balcony waiting for her lover to come home, and there's the one butterfly. So in Chinese in Chinese art, there's always two of everything because it's double happiness. So there should be two butterflies, but there's only one butterfly, and then one woman. So that's a kind of a sadness. And so and then there's other kind of decorative elements around it, but then I put like the two pairs of kangaroos. So that's still like playing on the double happiness idea, but also the Australiana. And they were also from the trip that we did together to Cleveland with Wong Fei. So of those particular arrangements of kangaroos. So
and it's like it's the art is living on in Australia. It's
so I guess like that blend of Australiana and and very traditional Chinese kind of ideas that went back to poetry, calligraphy, and Taoism. You know, it was sort of kind of what had a bit of an appeal for my work in China. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a question about funding. Do you want to ask it, Sue, or do you want me to ask it?
All right, I'll ask it.
Yeah.
It's all along the way in your conversation, it's been peppered with mentioning funding that you've received.
Yeah.
And I have experience of really not getting anywhere with that.
Yeah.
Have you got any advice, any tips? Or is it just a matter of, a lot of people say it's that first one that you get, and then it kind of everything attaches to that, and it builds momentum? Or do you think there's actually an art to that itself?
Yeah, there is an art to writing them, and I was very lucky. Sorry, excuse me. I was very fortunate that in the in the 2000s, like I was a member of the health promotions through the arts funding panel. So I did the visual arts representation on that panel, which was sort of gave out project money and I guess money for festivals and community arts as well as the community arts rep. So there was 3 people on the panel. There was theatre, dance, music, all the rest of it. Anyway, so that was an arts SA panel, but I did that for a number of years and used to read 120 grants every April. Used to take me the whole of April to read them. And then and that kind of, so I kind of, in some ways, that was my training on grant writing. But in short, in terms of tips, like it's like with a grant, there'll be the criteria that you always need to write to the criteria, whatever they've got there. You almost do headings for each one and then you respond. Like you frame your whole project in amongst those so that when the assessor comes through, they tick, 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 tick. The other thing that's really important is to lock in. Sometimes it's great to actually lock a project in with something outside of the arts as well. Makes it stronger, you know, like maybe a collaboration with the medical, like a hospital, or, you know, something like SAMRI or something, you know, or whatever you're doing, however, but it's also that's useful, but you have to just have kind of a point of difference, but you also need to make it simple and clear. So you just nothing too complicated, you know. There's just like a very simple objective that you're gonna, and what it's about, and it's interesting. You make it strong. You lock it into other interesting things, you know, or and then you get good support letters, and so then you can kind of move on from there, because what they want to see is they want to see a progression of development of the artist.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like, okay, you've been funded once, well, they're going to maybe fund you again because they've got you on record. They kind of know what you're doing and what you want to do. So you just keep on that kind of train, you know.
Yeah.
But,
thanks, Gus. That's good.
Yeah,
Thanks,
there's
Gus.
plenty of grants I haven't got as well.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. But a
Yeah.
lot of the things that you were talking about today were
Yeah.
underpinned by that support
Yeah,
that you've
yeah.
been given.
I mean, one of
financially.
the trips I did was on a business loan, and I just did a whole run I did these porcelain footballs, which are still around the place, you know, and then did a whole production run, and that kind of paid back the loan. So that got me to China. So yeah, I just kind of
Selling the footballs
like,
got you to China.
huh?
Selling the footballs got you to China.
No, I made them in China and brought them back here. Porcelain
And
footballs.
then the funding from selling
Yeah,
them.
That's right. Yeah. So,
That's a great story.
yeah. By any means necessary, it is, you know.
How footballs got me to making art in China.
Yeah. Well, I thought I was on a bit of a winner when Port Power went to Shanghai, and so I made a Port Power one with a Port Power logo in Mandarin. And you know, I think I sent it to the guy who was doing the Port Power in China thing, but no, it didn't get any traction.
Oh no, I didn't read it last night either.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that kind of wraps you up perfectly, Gus.
Okay, well, it's been great. Yeah.
It's been brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm really inspired to
thanks. It's been great to be able to talk about it, you know. So yeah, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, brilliant. If you do have any other questions, we're happy to field them through later, but we're going to flip over to Jessie Feitosa in a minute. Yep. So again, thanks, Gus. Thanks for your time and your stories and your resources.
No worries. Thank you.